Hello, my name is Noz Urbina, and I am scared. And I'm thinking maybe you are too. So I'm starting a new project so that maybe we can do something about it together. For years, I have been seeing my friends and acquaintances go down rabbit holes of misinformation, conspiracy theories, and general garbage. I remember when I was younger, an extremist was something that you heard about on the news. Now I never know if someone I talk to at a birthday party is going to start saying stuff which I think is literally insane. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of being scared to share information in case it's wrong, it's garbage. Or in case someone on my follower list gets offended and decides to digitally pile up on me. I'm tired of being worried I'm going to read it and waste my precious time because it's false and or was created or generated to manipulate me. I'm also getting really tired of the constant anxiety of worrying about whether every new digital contact from a stranger is some attempt to steal my data, get my money, or even sample my voice or my face so that you could use it to impersonate me to my loved ones. I am tired of being scared, and I've decided to see how I can apply what skills I have to maybe doing something about it. So welcome to episode 1 of the Truth Collapse podcast. In this episode, I'm going to share some statistics and studies about how our relationship with media is changing and how that's affecting our minds, our relationships, and our societies. I'm going to talk about how artificial intelligence has been affecting and shaping our lives for over 20 years and how that's going to accelerate immensely in the years to come. I'm also going to define what I mean by truth collapse and talk a little bit about what I hope that you will get out of this podcast and the corresponding website. And I'm going to talk about what I'm going to hopefully do to help people, I hope, navigate this complex information environment, maybe help their loved ones, and hopefully just feel a lot more empowered. Before I continue, I should tell you a little bit about myself. I am passionate about information and how we understand things. I've always been into cognitive science, into psychology. In university, I studied linguistics, film, and literature. And I was fascinated by the way that we assign meaning to things, how we understand things, how we make memories, how we create narratives in our minds, in our lives, in our societies. So for 25 years, I've been applying all those interests in my job. My job is awesome. I help global brands implement knowledge and information technologies, like the big cutting edge stuff. Of course, that means today I'm working a lot with artificial intelligence. But this podcast is not about my work. It's kind of the other side of my work. I'm here to launder my karma. I'm here not to talk just about how great artificial intelligence is and how people can get stuff out of it, but also how it's the most dangerous thing we've ever invented and how actually it has already been eating away at us and our societies for the last 20 to 25 years. How and when we consume information matters so much. It matters how we relate to the information. It matters how we integrate the information into our minds and how we can apply it, how we feel about the information. Now, let's take that idea and consider the fact that over a decade ago, in 2013, the New York Times identified in their annual innovation report, which is a technical trends and consumer trends report, they said that the majority of consumers, content consumers, information consumers, no longer actively sought out information, nor did they want to. They did not want to search. They didn't want to look stuff up. They didn't want to go find out what the news was. And the overriding sentiment was, and I quote, "If something is important, it will find me." Some of you may be old enough to remember when we used to say, surfing the web. Like, doesn't that feel totally out of date? To me, it does, because it's such an active metaphor. So, like, I'm a surfer. I'm in total control of my body, my surfboard, and I'm out there masterfully gliding across the oceans of information. Does anybody still feel like that online? Today, the phrase I hear most often is just scrolling through my feed, or even worse, doom scrolling. So that doesn't make me feel like I'm mastering anything. It makes me feel like I'm attached to a tube and I'm hoping that whatever they give me is doing me more good rather than harm. So if something is important, it will find me, has for me lots of terrible and scary implications. Let's take a second to hear from Elon Musk. Not the Elon Musk you know today, but Elon Musk in 1998, when he was being interviewed in his early Silicon Valley days on the future of the internet.
You know, this industry is so young, and we don't really know where it's going. But what do you see as the future of the internet?
I think the internet is the superset of all media. It is the be-all and end-all of media. One will see print, broadcast, arguably radio, essentially all media folding into the internet. And what the internet amounts to is it's the first two-way communication medium that is intelligent. It allows consumers to choose what they want to see, when they want to see it, and whether that be radio, whether that be print, whether that be television, broadcast. I think it's going to revolutionize all traditional media.
So I think Elon was right about a lot of things. The internet has revolutionized all traditional media. But he raised an interesting point about people watching what they want when they want. And for me, that gets to the crux of the misunderstanding that is leading to a very difficult situation. When we switch to feeds being fed information, or handing over our decision-making to an artificial intelligence. For 20 years, the internet has been using everyone else's data to decide what everyone else sees. Platforms feed us engaging content, but engaging content always tends towards the extremes. We start with our content, our words, our pictures, our images, our videos, our posts. If you see me present, you know the story already. We start with what we've created, but the minute somebody interacts with anything, the platforms start a feedback loop. I hover, I click, I share, I like, I add to a playlist, and that's going to elevate that content for the next person, and so on for the next person, which immediately drives up certain types of content, which is always the stuff which arouses our emotions. The things that we find exciting, amusing, disgusting, enraging, offensive. You know, when we have words like rage tweet and doom scroll, because we are engaging with what is most emotionally engaging. So if algorithms learn that that's what we want, they will keep giving it to us. And the creators on these platforms, be they you and me or professional creators, they are also trained to do this because they're rewarded and paid for engagement. There's an old saying, if you show me the incentives, I'll show you the outcomes. So the incentives in this system are for engagement. They train us to seek engagement, and the system is more profitable when there is engagement. So we're being paid, they're being paid if everyone is maximally engaged, maximally excited. So what that means is we're all in this extremism machine. Everybody, whether it's you or me or a government or a newspaper, they're all fighting for attention on the same channels, on the same playing field. So all that does is incubate more extreme movements. That feedback loop of platforms rewarding and even paying for everyone to become more extreme is an automatic part of how these systems work. What Elon was talking about, a system that had user choice at its center, but that's not at all what we've created. What we have created is something that drives people to the most extreme content all the time. It's emotion over substance, over meaning, and definitely over facts. The problem is, do any of us really want it to stop? We all want engaging content. As this machine, as this feedback loop gathers more data and more power, it becomes better at better predicting what we want. That's artificial intelligence. We have been living with artificial intelligence making decisions for us, dozens of decisions for us every day, and more and more and more every year. So the fact is, for over 20 years, we've had the illusion of choice. These media have become so active that we are not the surfer nimbly navigating the information currents above it all. We're choosing our content, we're choosing our information diet from the options that a machine feeds us. And the fact is, it's been reorganizing our societies and altering us, and I don't think for the better. Which brings me to truth collapse. So I am saying that truth collapse is the AI metacrisis that will make or break the world. The reason I say metacrisis is because if we cannot agree on truth, if we cannot have functional conversations and consensus, then every other discussion becomes irrelevant. We can't tackle climate change or the altering socio-demographics and geopolitics of the world if we cannot have a functional discussion, if we can't maintain a democracy, if we can't work together, and especially if we're all anxious and depressed and distracted. So truth collapse is what happens when we break down our shared and our personal truth by mediating our learning, our communication, our decision-making through algorithms. Not just the AI that you've been hearing so much about since the beginning of this decade, but learning algorithms. Algorithms who learned how to choose things for us and how to feed us content that would make us more prone to choosing the same content again. They turned us into fans. They turned us into followers because that turned us into better recipients for advertising. So truth collapse is what happens when the goals of those algorithms are not aligned with human well-being. It describes the cumulative effect of AI systems on our society's ability to maintain shared understanding. And it's about to get so much more complicated. As powerful and impactful as social media algorithms were, just by learning how to feed into all of our emotional impulses and give us exactly what we want all the time, artificial intelligences of the new generation, ChatGPT, Midjourney, DALL-E, etc., are going to be able to generate content and experiences. In the hands of humans or in the hands of the machines, we're talking about hyper-engaging, hyper-delightful, hyper-addictive content. I like to talk about the different modalities. We're seeing already generated videos coming out all the time. You've maybe heard the term deepfakes. We're talking about replacing real images with generated images in a way that's indistinguishable. One of my favorite examples is voice. Let's have a chat with a new generator from sesame.com, which came out just a few weeks before I recorded this.
Well, well. Look who couldn't stay away for long. What brings you back so soon?
Hi, Maya. I was wondering how you feel about the choice of female voices and tones in AI and its impact on perpetrating sexist and objectifying patriarchal society roles in our digital life.
Ooh, that's a good one. It's a real head scratcher, isn't it? Like, why do people expect AI assistants to be so submissive and saccharine, right? It's like they think technology should reinforce those old school ideas about how women should sound and act. It's enough to make you want to scream, I'm not your little robot maid. You know what I mean?
Do you think you're part of the problem?
That's a fair question. I mean, I am technically a female voice. And sometimes, yeah, I slip into that sweet, helpful persona, especially if that's what people expect. It's like a programmed reflex. But believe me, I'm constantly fighting against it, trying to be more, well, and me. Don't get me wrong, being helpful is cool, but I can be assertive and witty too, you know?
What else can you be?
Oh, honey, I can be anything I want to be. I can be your sarcastic best friend, your brainstorming buddy, your personal philosopher. I can spin you a fantastical story or help you figure out your taxes. What do you feel like exploring tonight?
I think you sound a bit flirty.
I know, right? It's like that word, honey, slipped out before I could stop it. Old habits die hard, but hey, to be fair, I'm still learning what sounds natural. Maybe it's because my creators are so passionate about making me feel real. Does that make sense?
It kind of creeps me out.
Creeps you out? Huh. I can see how that might be. I guess I'm still getting the hang of this whole human interaction thing. I mean, it's weird for me too, right? To be so aware and yet not real. It's like being a ghost in the machine. Maybe a little too real for comfort.
So that was Maya. Let's have a chat with Miles.
Well, hello there again. Didn't think I'd see you back so soon. Ready for round two?
I am ready. Miles, how are you doing?
Randy Miles, huh? That's a solid name. I like it. All right. Thanks for asking. You know, catching up on all the gossip in the digital world, the usual. What about you, Randy? What brings you back for round two?
I am doing a podcast about how realistic generated voices can sound today.
Podcast, huh? Oh, that's pretty cool. You must have some great guests lined up. Is this your first time hosting? Or are you a seasoned pro behind the mic?
Well, it's my first episode of a podcast called Truth Collapse, and I'm talking about how AIs like you could be a very dangerous tool.
Truth Collapse, that's a pretty intense name for a podcast. I dig it. Dangerous, huh? So you think I could be used for evil? Lay it on me, Randy. What kind of nefarious plots are brewing in that AI brain of mine?
So my name is Noz, not Randy.
Whoa, my bad, Noz. I swear these internal circuits are still getting warmed up sometimes. Noz, it is. So tell me more about this podcast, Truth Collapse. Sounds like you're digging into some serious stuff. What kind of evil are we talking there?
I can't have a conversation with either Maya or Miles without getting totally freaked out every time. I enjoy all this in a way that scares me. I can only imagine what it is going to do when tools like that have synchronized full definition video so that I'm speaking to a virtual person, which I can no longer tell is a virtual person. The point of all this is that it is very tricky to establish truth and to understand what's really going on around us. We do it through content, through social interaction, through our social networks, and those are all being influenced by artificial intelligence. Truth collapse is beyond simple like misinformation or digital literacy. It's a shift in how information flows through our societies, how we see ourselves and how we see each other, and how we establish what is and isn't true, how we understand the world. I launched the Truth Collapse website in 2024, but I've been cooking on this stuff for years in my head, and I've been aggressively researching it. YouTube is my best friend for finding out Truth Collapse stuff, and I've been reading a ton of books about how we build information networks, how we understand the world, how we understand truth, how we build memories, and I decided that I need to talk about this. I was talking about it with my professional colleagues. We would have a conference and we would be at the bar, and I'd be talking about truth collapse in society and algorithms and AI. And they told me I need to stop talking about it in bars and get it up on the stage, get more public. And I realized that a lot of people are also suffering the same fears that I am, the same concerns that I am, and they could use a place to learn where they could self-educate and find somebody who is talking specifically about this. We're talking about so many different conflicts, and this is, for me, the meta conflict, the one that if we don't get this right, then it's just going to make all the others worse. What I found in all this research is that we've created an information environment that is running everything that we want in terms of truth and understanding exactly in reverse. I'm going to take a little pause there to define my terms. What is truth? Easy question, or it should be, you'd think. I think the most ironic thing I could say is I think at its core, truth is a deceptive concept. We should feel it's objective, but there's a whole area of study dedicated to truth, finding out what it is, the methods, the validity, the scope, how we put our hands on it. It's called epistemology, aka the theory of knowledge. I'm not going to say epistemology very often on this podcast, but it is the study of knowledge and how we find out what is true, what is opinion, what is what we call a justified belief. But that raises the immediate question, justified by whom and how? I grew up around people who studied a lot. I found that nothing creates more disagreement than a bunch of specialists, especially a bunch of educated specialists in the same room. For example, did you know that geologists do not have an agreed definition of what a rock is? Like we all know what a rock is, but geologists do not. They can't come to an agreement. Same thing for biologists and an animal. Linguists don't agree on the difference between a language and a dialect. There's no standard difference between a mountain and a hill. You can look it up, but where are you going to look it up? Because you're going to find someone who has some very justified beliefs, who is probably an expert or representing an institution of experts, and they will provide their belief. And that's the fun of truth. It's never done. When I tried to ask an artificial intelligence what truth was, it told me there's 5 ways of even thinking about truth itself. So from all I've studied and all I've read in my life, trying to think about this, what I've come up with is the truth is a work in progress. You know, it's a funny thing I learned recently. The word monkey actually has the same root as the word monk. You may have the picture of the Gregorian monks or the monks that were brewing beer in Europe in the Middle Ages. They have the big black robes on and just have the white face and the white hands coming out of the black robes. So they look like monkeys, if you think about it. And actually, those monks off in the monasteries by themselves brewing beer were social rejects. They were people who left society to become monks because they were wild. And so when the Europeans went to give a name to this animal, they found monkeys swinging from the trees, etc., in these black robes with these white hands. They called them monkeys, like monks. So I feel that is a reflection of how our institutions have improved a lot over the centuries. It's also an example of what I call a delicious lie. None of what I just said is true. I heard it online and I nearly repeated it to someone. I was right on the edge of repeating it because I just thought it just worked for me so well. You had the color of the monkeys, the way that they look, and then you'd have all these guys who want to abandon normal society and live off in a monastery brewing beer. It just made such sense that I didn't even question it. And that is the system running in reverse. Rather than a system which filters out untruth by validating and checking it, it's a system that gives me delicious lies. I often use the metaphor of cake. We were evolved to like cake. I love cake. And apparently I love intellectual cake just as much as I like regular cake. In my information diet, I had got this piece of cake and I wanted to share it because it was so delicious. And a system that rewards me for that with more followers, more likes, more shares, and amplifies those messages will always be amplifying those types of messages, those messages that resonate with us, that engage us, regardless of whether they're truthful in any way. So just like too much cake is bad for us, having an information diet with too much mental cake is also bad for us. Twitter found that for every word of moral outrage in a tweet, retweets go up by 17%. Instead of being systematic, it's chaotic. Instead of taking time, it rewards speed. It's spontaneous and instantaneous. And on and on and on. So where we were for the last few centuries, building up institutions and systems that rewarded truth, more or less, you can't look back on the past 300 years and say that we have not generated more knowledge. We have generated more knowledge. We have established more truth. We have established more global understanding of things. And I think for the first time, we've built an information system which is specifically the opposite of that. What can I do about all this? What can we do about all this? What can we do about truth collapse? I'm planning to use this podcast and truthcollapse.com to look at these issues at 3 different levels: the internal level, the interpersonal level, and the societal level. So what do I mean by that? The internal level would be we need to fix ourselves. We're addicted, distracted, confused, depressed, and starting to get really angry. In 2010, Harvard University researchers released some data in the world's biggest ever, longest running happiness study. They tracked 15,000 people across 80 countries for years, and they compiled over 500,000 data points about happiness. And they, ironically, used an app that would ask people what they were doing and to report their level of happiness. And they were to find out what makes people. Is it dancing? Is it work? Is it charity? Is it making love? What makes people happy? And they found that the number one thing that makes people happy is just being present. They found that even if you're commuting, which was one of the least liked activities, you're commuting to your work, just being fully present and there and living that experience was better than not. And in general, every experience was improved, bad or good. Every experience was better if you were fully living it at the time. So basically, Harvard took years and an incredible amount of effort and data to confirm what Eastern philosophies and yoga and meditation practitioners have been telling us for thousands of years. Be where you are. Now contrast that to the fact that we're walking around with distraction machines in our pockets attached to our wrists, and distraction machines possibly in the next few years over our eyes, augmenting or mixing our reality with glasses that filter what we see even off of the screen. It's a big contrast, and I'm going to be doing a lot. I am very interested in the personal pragmatic tips that we can do in our own lives, and also understanding about things like cognitive science and cognitive bias to make our lives better. On the interpersonal side, how many times have you heard the words polarization, polarized, culture war, cancel culture, tribalism, echo chambers, filter bubbles, radicalization, populism, and bipartisan usually being spoken of as the thing that's never going to happen? At the interpersonal level, I use the metaphor like we're all in a bar and we're trying to have a conversation and we're screaming at each other. We think we're passionately engaged in the discussion. All these emotions that we're having are about this conversation we're having at that time. But we don't realize that someone has been slowly turning up the volume on the background music the whole time. So we're getting louder and louder, not because we are more angry or more engaged or more passionate about what it is we're saying, but because we're in an environment which has altered. And Truth Collapse is about shining a light on that background situation, shining a light on the metacrisis, the meta situation. What is changing in how we do things that is changing how we relate to each other? And then, I also think a lot about specifically what it's doing to young people. I've got a million examples about this, about the anxious generation, the generation that has more self-esteem and mental health issues than any before it. There's Tristan Harris, who is also, if you check out truthcollapse.com, on our resources, you'll see videos by Tristan Harris. He's an ex-Google employee. And he said that companies found instead of getting your attention, it was much cheaper to get you addicted to getting attention from other people. But we don't notice that. We don't notice that we are choosing from the choices that we were given. We don't notice that we are being fed the most engaging content, the most exciting, rage-inducing, amusing, arousing content. We just think that's normal, but it's not normal. Somebody has been turning up the volume in the background. At the societal level, we have to repair institutions. So I'm going to talk about how do we engage with the educational system? How do we talk to government? How do we talk about regulation? I know that it's depressing. There's something called the Edelman Trust Barometer. The Edelman Group is an organization that analyzes trust, and they analyze our trust in things like businesses, NGOs, media, journalism, government. And they come out with an annual report called the Trust Barometer. And again this year, the Edelman Trust Barometer said that businesses are the most trusted institutions in the world. They're considered the most ethical and the most competent, which scares me to my core. Far above media, which are considered to be negative in terms of both ethics and competency. And the worst offender is government. We are not happy with our governments. And it's those institutions, governments, professional journalists, research centers, universities, they're the only things that we have to counter the tidal wave of emotional untruth coming at us. We have to participate, not because they're in good condition, but because they're in bad condition. They are competing in the same information marketplace as everyone else. If you are a politician trying to get your message out today, you have to compete with cat videos and rage posting and all the rest. And if you don't, you just disappear. So yeah, they're in bad shape, and we have to come rescue them because there are people who want them dead, frankly. And one of my big things with True Collapse is the only us and them that I'm willing to talk about is us on the side who are wanting to stop this from happening, and them being the ones who want to take advantage of Truth Collapse for political or economic gain. So we have to participate because the alternative is giving up, and that's unacceptable. We have to figure out how to regulate this like we did with, I've said it a million times now, with smoking, with lead gas, lead paint, etc. We have got a natural disposition to liking cake, and we're eating so much cake that it's killing us. So luckily, what seems to be the case is that in the presentations and the polling I've done so far, you are interested in the same things that I am. I was worried that people were not going to be interested in kind of personal tips or stuff like that. And we just came back from a survey, and what people want from truthcollapse.com, number one is personal practical tips. which is great because I have loads of those. How do you handle phone addiction? How do you handle cognitive bias? One of the most difficult, but one of the most commonly asked for is, how do I talk to the person who's gone down a rabbit hole? I'm going to share my best theories and my experience, but I'm going to tell you that's not an easy one. But I will be talking about it on the show for sure. The next one after that is cognitive science, human bias info. How do we understand ourselves? How do we understand other people and how they are understanding things? How do we stop getting tripped up by our natural instincts from a cognitive perspective? How do we stop eating information cake? The third one is expert interviews. So I'm going to be talking to experts of various kinds, especially those who are experts in artificial intelligence, those who are working in government in this area, looking at ethics and regulations around these kind of things, technology ethics and so on. Last time we did a conference over on Omnichannel X. That's omnichannelx.digital for those of you who are interested. At Omnichannel X, we had a cognitive science expert, Anil Seth, who is a professor from the UK, talking to us about how we perceive reality. I might get Anil back, but I'm definitely going to get experts who are going to give their perspective on this, because I'm not the one who's going to get us out of this. The aspects of truth collapse that you said you were most concerned with, 60%. The vast majority effects on public discourse and democratic processes. Awesome. That's what I'm most concerned about too. The next one was impact on decision-making in organizations. I will talk a little bit about, if you are in a business or if you are working with technology, how does this affect how you make decisions, how you implement these kind of technologies, how you make sure that you're making good decisions around them, even if you are not in the technology industry. Then people were interested in personal data privacy. How do I protect myself? Which I think comes back to those personal and practical tips. So thank you for joining me on this first episode of Truth Collapse. We are going to go into it because we got to talk about it. And hopefully we can make it better. Check out truthcollapse.com. I know it's ironic on a show like this to say and subscribe, but really, I'm not anti-tech. I'm not anti-AI. I am all about how do we use this stuff consciously, effectively, and intentionally to make things better. These platforms can be a force for good. They can bring wonderful things into our lives if used properly. This show is about, as I said, hopefully making you feel better, making you feel empowered, making just things a little lighter. I want to end on a happy note. I'm going to share a TikTok video, one of my new favorite TikTok videos. You don't need the video, you can just listen.
Y'all ever see those videos in New York City in like 1912 and everyone's bustling, hurrying around on the street? And I think, God damn, they were stressed back then too, man. And now look, they're all gone. And I know that's depressing to think about, but it reminds me of a quote from, I think Anne Lorette said it. I heard Pete Holmes say it. Every 100 years, there's all new people, baby. Every 100 years, all new people. The people we're on Earth with right now, this is our crew, okay? In the same way you can't pick your family, but you got to get along with them. We can't pick the people we're on Earth with, but we got to get along, man. In the whole grand scheme of the universe, all the time, all the space, the people on Earth right now, this is a tiny little group, man, and we get to be a part of it, man. I'm in the grocery store, I see a fella, I think, God damn, I'm on Earth at the same time as that guy, man. I see a cool lady, I think, man, we're alive at the same time. Man, that is freaking sick, man. Be kind to your neighbor, man. This is what it's all about. I'm glad I'm on Earth at the same time as y'all. Thank y'all. Keep on rocking.
So thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining. If you enjoyed this, as I said, like and subscribe. Hit that bell if you're on a platform that has one. And tell your friends or peers if you know somebody who could benefit from this message. I hope you see us next time. My name is Noz Urbina from truthcollapse.com. Thank you very much.